But head of state came at a point soon after the new Labour government brought in anti-terrorism legislation into domestic law in the UK. The work it's very much raising a point that the government's foreign policy towards the Middle East, and specifically the invasion and occupation of Iraq, it was curtailing civil rights in the UK. So we were trying to raise the point that there's a really serious domestic impact in UK territory for UK citizens born out of aggressive foreign policy elsewhere in the world. And we were trying to bring those two geographical separately oppressions into one space. And so we put Tony Blair's, who was the head of government at the time, he put his portrait central in the work.
I mean, the work is about the surveillance of our society. I mean, that's why with Blair there's an enormous, slightly crazy blue eye that's staring out at us, which is his eye. We've got surveillance coming. It's got Charles Jimenez, who was shot by the police. So it's about surveillance, being imprisoned in this system that they invented to combat the war, what they call the war on terror, which was a completely nebulous term that didn't actually mean anything, but it did mean that, like this cat said, that domestically there was these very, very tight laws were brought in and much more powers given to the state. Making work with Kat is the actual discussion and argument, which is what making political work is about, but usually one has it with oneself. But working together has opened up a whole new area of work for me, in the sense that we're always pushing each other. So you do push much more into other areas of work.
I think we work very much as a conversation, and that's the whole point of us collaborating together, is that there's a dialogue in the making. So when we're making a piece of work, that dialogue quite often becomes an argument, actually, about a subject.
The sort of chaos of that image, which is something that probably if I'd worked on a sort of idea about what was happening at that time on my own, it would have been much more structured and probably deader in feel. I mean, the fact is it creates a liveliness of response.
And I would have said, in terms of what images get selected to go into the work, it's the results of having arguments over what's the actual subject that we're facing up to here, and what are the key points that need to be focused on or shown or described in a work.
In a sense, what we do is about collaborating with an audience, in the sense we want people to respond to our analysis of what's going on. Well, it's not really analysis, it's a response. We make the work in anger. That's how we started. We got together because of the invasion of Iraq, and we went, like millions of people went on the demos against it, and then it happened, and you saw this awful destruction of this country happening. And so there's in a sense, the way this picture is a response to that destruction and the destruction of Iraq coming back into Britain. So that's why it's got all this torn and fractures and breaks in it.
We're making work very much for the public, and we're making work with material that is mediated to the public already in some other context or some other framework. So maybe something that is a government statement might be an inspiration point, but because we're working with material that is already public, it's very important that we work on platforms or in places that are available to the public.
I mean, there's always been this divide, art or activism, but I think art now is a form of activism. Even people that are making very abstract works or whatever, it's someone's vision against the way the world is going, which is totally corporate and totally about profit.
It's also something that a computer or artificial intelligence can't do. I mean, I'm sure there's a scientist out there that would love to prove me wrong, but I think what would be produced would be devoid of human perspective.
We've done workshops together with young people, and and older people,
yeah, I was
and a
gonna
whole
say.
different groups, and they've got something, you know, they've all got something to say that, and when they make a visual statement, it opens up their own feelings about what's going on in the world. So art is really vital in terms of responding to a world that gets more and more technological and more corporate.
It's also, I think, art is it's incredibly powerful. And I mean, that's key to why I don't think art's ever going to not be needed in the future. From all different perspectives, and not all good ones, but it's a very key part of how we negotiate and discover things, because it's all about changing perspective.